Hey guys, welcome to Rosie's Dessert Spot. In this episode I'll be teaching you how to make a cake decorated with cake pops and dripping ganache. I'm going to prepare my cake pop batter, so I've got my white chocolate buttons, which is compound chocolate, mixing it with some heavy cream and making sure that all the chocolate's coated, and then microwaving it for about 30 seconds until it's nice and fluid. I'm crumbing some vanilla cake here that I've prepared, nice and thin, and then I'm adding in 2 teaspoons of ganache. I'm going to mix that through with my teaspoon. In the end I ended up adding about 3 teaspoons of ganache in total. And I'm going to work it with my hands, because when you're working with a spoon you're not going to be able to tell what the texture's like, if it's too sticky or if it's starting to come together, so it's a lot easier just to use your hands with this. And I have the recipe for these cake pops and also the ganache in the description box below. Then taking a little bit and testing it out. If it's nice and smooth and it's not very sticky and looks something like this, then your batter is ready. And then I made some extra chocolate ganache, and that's going to be used to dip our chocolate, to dip our cake pops into. And I've added a little bit of cocoa because I will be adding some colour to this, and that'll just help my ganache not to seize. I'm using sky blue. I'm going to add a drop into each little cup here, some fuchsia, however you say it, and some lemon yellow. And these are gel colours by Americolor. So I'm just combining that in. And then set that aside. In the meantime we'll prepare our cake pops. So I've got my cake pop sticks, dipping them into some regular white compound chocolate and setting those to dry. I'm going to prepare my cake. I've scored a line around the top of the cake so I can saw through and make sure it's nice and even flat layer. I'll do the same when I'm cutting the cake in half and just rotating the cake as I saw through. And you'll notice my knife is on the outside. That helps to keep it nice and straight as well. I'm using a 5-inch vanilla cake for this. Securing it to my cake board with some vanilla buttercream and just filling it as well with a piping bag. Also regular vanilla buttercream. Make sure that you center your cake and then press it down. And do the same with the other layers as well. And then for the very top layer I'm using the bottom of the cake, and I've turned it upside down so my top of the cake is going to be nice and flat. And then I use a spatula just to remove all the excess buttercream that's popping out the sides, and I'll pop that into the freezer just until it's nice and set. And in the meantime I'm going to prepare my cake pops. So I'm dipping them into the coloured ganache, and I had to reheat this because it did dry up a little bit. And then tap off the excess while also rotating the cake pop for even coverage. Because we did add in the cocoa, at the moment it's a bit more fluid than usual, so you might need to take a while and take your time tapping off that excess. And do the same with all the colours. And I used about 4 or so of each colour. So about 12 cake pops in total. Then set that to dry. And in the meantime we'll continue preparing our cake. So that's out of the freezer now. I'm adding my crumb coat. So that's just some vanilla buttercream that I'm adding onto the top, smoothing it out nice and flat, and then just adding a really thin layer, or a really thin coating of buttercream onto the sides of my cake. And what that's going to do is going to capture all of the loose crumbs, and it'll stop that from entering our final layer of buttercream. So you can set that in the fridge for another 10 or so minutes, and then add in your final layer of buttercream. So I'm flattening it out at the top, adding heaps so that it can drape down the sides. And then I'm filling in the sides as well with extra buttercream. And I'm adding a pretty thick layer here because we're going to go in later on with our bench scraper and remove all the excess. Make sure that you get rid of all the air pockets as well, because that can bulge out later on and destroy the overall look of your cake. I'm taking my bench scraper and I'm slowly scraping away all the excess. I'm not taking off too much at once. I'm going around slowly and scraping off the excess that's on my bench scraper, so that's nice and clean when I go around again. Once you have it to a level of smoothness that you like, run your bench scraper under some really hot water. Well, first I'm going to clear off the top with my spatula, and then after I've done that I'm going to run my bench scraper under some really hot water and slowly make my way around the cake. And here you can tell the difference between a non-smooth and the smoothed buttercream. So I definitely wouldn't skip this step, especially if you're leaving your buttercream cake naked without adding any fondant on top or anything. I'll smooth off the top as well, just always putting my cake scraper under the hot water each time. And then I've coloured some ganache turquoise. Now I've just added it to the top and using a spatula I'm just pushing it out to the sides. And while it's still nice and fluid, I'm going in with a piping bag and just adding some extra droplets wherever I see will look nice. And because it's still really wet, it'll blend in and you won't be able to see that extra droplet was added. Then once the cake pops are nice and set, remove them from their stick just by breaking that chocolate that secures the cake pop stick to the cake pop, and arrange them on your cake however you like. I sort of had one in the middle to guide the rest, so I just kept popping them all around that center cake pop, and it helped to make it all nice and even. Then I'm adding a cake pop in between each other cake pop that I have underneath. And I think what would have looked a lot nicer here is if I used smaller cake pops. But it didn't look so bad after all, yeah, in the end. Then I'm adding 3 at the bottom, and then just an extra one on the side because I thought it needed something. Just like that. And lucky last, if you like, you can add in some sprinkles as well. So these are just some hundreds and thousands that I had on hand. And I'm making sure to pop them just on the very top of the cake. I don't want them touching the sides of the ganache. That's on the side of the cake. I think it just needs to be really subtle. And that's just one of the very many ways you can decorate your cake using cake pops. It's a very colourful cake. I would definitely suggest you experiment with different colours. And you can't think too much with these cakes. I mean, when I'm decorating it with the sort of flowy ganache on top, you sort of think, oh my god, what's going to happen? I'll put it on and I'll smooth it and then it'll be all on one side. And just don't think too much into it. Just let it come naturally to you. It's a very simple cake, very sweet and simple. So I hope you guys give it a shot. Your kids will love it. Even your adults will love it. And yes, that was this week's tutorial. Thanks guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. And now for the heart-wrenching moment where I cut open one of my babies. I'll start from the top. I'll make this slice nice and big. Yummy!